Donald Trump is pro-crime and pro-criminal.
Have you ever been the only one in the room who didn't clap? Not because you couldn't, but because you knew the truth didn't deserve applause. That's what Mehdi Hasan faced when he stepped into a debate with 20 diehard Trump supporters. Not as an entertainer, not for shock value, but to confront the very fabric of what America believes about itself. Most of us would have walked out before the camera started rolling, but he didn't. And that's the difference between speaking and standing. Because there's a moment when the crowd leans in, when the eyes narrow, when the pressure thickens, where most people fold, where self-preservation kicks in and courage takes a back seat. But Mehdi didn't fold. He didn't raise his voice to meet theirs. He sharpened his words. And in a space filled with noise, that clarity cut deeper than volume ever could. He didn't have the numbers. He had the truth. And truth doesn't need applause to be valid. It doesn't need a crowd to be real. It just needs someone brave enough to carry it into uncomfortable places. Someone willing to be the only one in the room who sees the fire and still walks into it. This wasn't about proving a point. It was about protecting one. About reminding us that being right doesn't always feel good. That truth isn't always loud, but it is always steady. So when Mehdi Hasan stood surrounded, he reminded us of something this country is dangerously close to forgetting. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do in America is simply refuse to be silent. And in that moment, he didn't just speak for himself, he spoke for every person who has ever dared to stand alone, because silence wasn't an option. Truth isn't meant to comfort, it's meant to confront, and that's exactly what it did in that room. Mehdi Hasan didn't come to win a shouting match. He came with facts, and he delivered them with precision, calm, sharp, undeniable. But the truth has a strange way of making people uncomfortable, especially when it shatters something they've built their identity around. You could see it in the reactions, grimaces, eye rolls, long silences where words should have been. Because deep down, we all know that truth isn't always popular. It doesn't always feel good. It doesn't ask for permission to exist. It just is. In a culture addicted to applause and echo chambers, Hasan's voice cut through not with volume, but with weight. There's something powerful about watching someone say what's real in a room that doesn't want to hear it. He didn't backtrack, he didn't dilute it, he let it sit there unapologetically like a mirror no one wanted to look into. That's what truth does. It doesn't bend to make you comfortable, it holds you accountable. And maybe that's why it felt so rare, because we've grown so used to conversations that entertain rather than enlighten. But in that debate, the entertainment stopped. And for a few piercing moments, something deeper took its place. Not agreement, not unity, but clarity. And in today's America, clarity is a radical act. Truth might not get the loudest cheer, but it's the only thing worth defending. And that night, it stood its ground. That room wasn't just divided by opinions, it was torn by identity. You could feel it in every question, every cross-armed posture, every defiant stare. This wasn't just a debate about politics. It was something much deeper. It was about who gets to define America, what it means to belong, what version of the truth we're willing to accept, and what we're desperate to deny. When Mehdi Hasan stood at the center of that circle, it wasn't just a man versus a crowd, it was a mirror versus a myth. Because for many in that room, their beliefs weren't just political stances, they were armor, history, culture, and when Mehdi challenged them, he wasn't just challenging arguments, he was threatening the stories they told themselves about what's right, what's real, and what's theirs. And that's why it felt like war. Because in America today, disagreement doesn't feel like discourse, it feels like betrayal. The lines between truth and identity have blurred so deeply that to question a claim is to question someone's worth. And yet, Mehdi did it, with composure, with restraint, with fire that didn't burn but illuminated. That moment revealed something we all need to see, that the real battle isn't left versus right. It's reality versus illusion, courage versus comfort. The soul of a nation is shaped not by who shouts loudest, but by who dares to speak truthfully even when the crowd is stacked against them. And in that moment, Mehdi wasn't debating. He was defending something sacred. There's a weight that comes with speaking truth in a room that doesn't want to hear it. It's not just about being outnumbered, it's about knowing that every word you say will be twisted, challenged, mocked. that even your silence will be used against you. Mehdi Hasan didn't walk into that debate for comfort. He walked into it knowing exactly what he was up against. Because today, telling the truth has a cost. It costs your peace. It costs your popularity. Sometimes it costs your safety. In an age where disinformation spreads faster than facts, where shouting wins over listening, where truth is treated like an opinion, those who speak with clarity are treated like a threat. And Mehdi didn't just speak, he refused to shrink. There's something deeply powerful about watching someone stay grounded in the middle of a storm. He didn't flinch when he was interrupted. He didn't stumble when confronted with distortions. He stood there, measured, precise, unshaken. That kind of strength doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from knowing that some things are too important to dilute. It's easy to go along, to play it safe, to laugh off a lie just to keep the peace. But peace built on silence is just permission for the loudest voice to take over. Mehdi didn't give that permission, and that's why it mattered. Because in a culture of noise, the quiet strength of truth becomes revolutionary. And the people who carry it, knowing the risk, feeling the pressure, and still choosing to speak, those are the ones keeping the soul of this country alive. This wasn't the first time we've seen one voice stand against many. History is full of these moments, quiet at first, then unforgettable. They don't usually happen in arenas or on grand stages. They happen in classrooms where a student questions a teacher, in courtrooms where justice feels stacked, on buses where a woman refuses to move, and now on a debate set where one journalist refused to surrender the truth to applause. What Mehdi Hasan did in that room wasn't new. It was an echo. It echoed through the halls where Frederick Douglass once spoke truth to a nation that refused to hear it. It echoed in the words of Shirley Chisholm, who stood alone on the debate stages of her time. It echoed in every protester who was told to be quiet, to sit down, to stop stirring trouble, and answered by standing taller. Because America's history isn't written just by majorities. It's shaped by the courage of those willing to be outnumbered. When Mehdi held his ground, he didn't just engage with arguments, he reminded us of a legacy of resistance, of asking better questions, of calling out lies even when the lie is popular. It's easy to dismiss these moments as just another internet clip, just another viral video. But sometimes they're more than that. Sometimes they become a crack in the wall, a place where light gets in. And in that moment, Mehdi wasn't just a voice in the crowd. He was part of a long, unfinished American story. This wasn't just about Mehdi Hasan. It was about us, about what we're willing to stand for when the crowd turns, when the truth feels inconvenient, when it would be so much easier to stay quiet. Mehdi didn't walk into that room to win applause. He walked in to hold up a mirror. And whether we agreed with him or not, we saw something undeniable. One voice can still matter, but here's the truth. What happens in that room doesn't stay there. It echoes into our own lives, into how we talk to each other, into what we believe, into how we vote, teach, question, and listen. The battle for America's soul isn't fought on a stage, it's fought in everyday moments when we choose truth over comfort, clarity over noise, courage over silence. So if this story made you think, if it stirred something in you, don't let it end here. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more stories.